All right. Hi, everyone. So I do want to checkpoint. There are only 3 talks left before lunch. I know there have been many incredible games today. So I want to let you know that we're almost there. Just a little bit more information to digest, and then we can all talk about it over some food. So, hi, my name's Leron. Today I'll be talking about the game called Network States. And I'll be doing so on behalf of the Network States team, many of whom are in the audience today. And we can jump right into it. So, what is Network States? Network States is a game where you are the commander-in-chief of a network state. Your job is to spawn into a dark grid with a number of troops, and your task is to use these troops to conquer land around you. As you conquer more land, you see more and more of the grid. Eventually, as you conquer more of the grid, you start running into other people's lands. And that's when things get really exciting because you start battling over troops, battling over capitals, battling over championships. And so as a quick demo here, we have a quick GIF where we are purple and you're moving 57 troops around, and you'll notice that as you're feeling around, you start to see more of the map. You eventually find someone's city, state, capital, and then you take it. And then if you take the city center, then you get all of the person's troops. And you can see here, as we capture this person's capital or this person's city center, you get everything. You get vision of this person's entire city. And so that's the basic premise. It's a simple game. It's only made up of a few simple components, but if you put it together, you get a set of pretty intricate player behaviors that I'll walk through briefly for everyone now. First off, starting with spawning. With spawning, you usually have 2 choices when you start going in. The first one is you can play conservative. The second one is you can play aggressive. Over here, we'll first talk about the conservative strategy, where you're just looking around a little bit, not being careful about not reaching out too much and not alerting anyone of your presence. You're just trying to slowly build up your empire, slow and steady. This is the turtle here. Or you can choose to be the rabbit, and you can be the aggressive person who says, right when I spawn, I'm taking all of my troops, and I'm going straight into trying to capture someone's territory. I want to be a gunslinger this game. So right from the very start, again, simple components, but you already have a number of decisions that you can start making as a player. Things get even more interesting when you start running into other states. Here we're green, and I'll talk about what I think of as a player in this situation. I'm green and I'm looking at blue's state, and I'm slowly tracing the outline of it. And I'm thinking, okay, hey, 9, 11, 16, 18, these are a lot of troops. In my head, I'm saying, okay, there are a lot of troops here. Does that mean there's a city center close by that's ready for me to capture because there's so much protection around it? I could also be thinking, hey, there are a lot of troops here. That might mean that there aren't many troops over there. There's probably some breach in this person's armor if I just keep circling and I can find some weak point to penetrate. Or I could be thinking in the back of my mind, maybe I'm just mid-curving this. Maybe there are just so happens to be troops here. If I take 80 of my troops and just try to blindly charge in, then I might just waste a lot for no gain. So all of this goes together to form some strategic depth that goes on in players' heads. And the strategic depth doesn't need to develop only when you have the novelty of spawning or only when you have the novelty of running into someone else's state. It could also apply when you're just trying to explore, trying to think about your own long-term strategy. In this case, we're blue, and we have 81 troops, and we see that we don't really have any other state in range. But even in this case, I'm thinking, okay, I have 81 troops. Maybe I should leave half of the troops behind so that if someone does start encroaching on my territory, I can mount a good defense against it. Or I might be thinking I might want to double down on this party and make it more of a raid party, where I take wherever my closest city center is, I bring it up, and I join it with 81 troops, take 100, 150 troops, and then just go straight to trying to find someone's city center and hopefully take it. So again, all of this is coming together to create a deep experience for the player without really having too many components floating around. Like, this is a game where it's a pixel game, 2D game. You're looking at how many troops you have, and you're slowly moving them around. So easy to understand, hard to master, many levels of playing here. And I took everyone through this experience because I wanted to give people a little bit of a perspective into what it feels like to be a player into this game, because it helps you appreciate what certain mods can do. And so now moving on to the mod that we'd like to propose for this game. We were thinking about this for a while. So a few days ago, when we were sitting with the internal team, we were thinking, okay, what do we want to get out of the mod? And we came out with 3 main goals. The first goal is that we wanted the mod to deal with the core loop of the game. We didn't want it to be an extraneous side quest that people can or cannot participate with. We really want it to be somewhere where this one mod could completely change the way that the game was played. The second bit is that we want it to be well scoped. Now I know this seems contrary to the first, where we want it to modify the core loop but be well scoped. The important distinction here is that we want the impacts of the game to be really ambitious. We want the scope of the technology to be really unambitious, because there are realistically 20 to 30 real hours of hacking in this couple-day event. So we really wanted to make sure that it's a small enough mod such that we can comfortably ship something in this time. And then finally, as a combination of the first two, we wanted a lot of strategic depth, a high bang for your buck mod. Something that's easy to do, but makes a big experience for the game, for the actual players of the game. So those are our goals. We thought about this over and over. We ran through many ideas, and we really have one that satisfies all of this, and we want it to be really picky. So I'm only going to talk about one idea. And this idea is on unstable alliances. Now, to talk about what an unstable alliance is, we can go back to the example we saw earlier with green looking into blue state. Our proposed mod is that when green first starts to see blue, they get a pop-up that says, or some UX bit that says, do you want to initiate an alliance with blue? And if blue so chooses to accept, then they can share vision with each other. In other words, green can see everything that blue sees, and blue can see everything that green sees, including their own city centers, any troops that they have on their perimeters, and that's where the alliance bit comes from. The alliance comes in vision. So that's the alliance part. The unstable part is that we don't want to disable friendly fire. We want to create situations where green asks blue to go in an alliance, somehow goes on some third-party chat room to convince them that they're friendly, sees where blue city centers are, mounts an attack, and goes straight for the city centers. We want betrayal to be baked into the game. And that's where unstable alliances come from. And this mod fulfills all three of our goals. One, it completely changes the way that the game is played. Because right now the game is spawn, move. Now it's spawn, move, and then handshake. And this third bit is going to, I would say very high chance it changes whatever meta is going on right now with network states. It's a huge change. Next one, it's well scoped. It's only a vision level scope. You're not actually going to change game state, because that will likely lead to many cascading consequences for anything that touches the game loop. This is a purely client-side modification where one person's sending tiles directly to the other person. So it's doable, well doable within 20 to 30 hours. Then finally, with strategic depth, it's a simple game. It's literally, I see what you see what I see, but it adds a lot of strategic depth to the game, because now you have betrayal, which is a really cool thing to explore in games. So that's the mod. I want to briefly be very candid here and talk about some pros and cons if you did decide to come build with us on this. The big pro is that it's early. Network States is still in its play testing phase, and we're iterating through a couple different variants of what the final game could end up being like. And because of that, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit like this one that we just haven't touched. And it's the reason that we get this high bang for your buck moment is actually only because we haven't tried it ourselves. So being early in this case has been is a benefit for modders. The big con is that it's also just early. As speaking with personal experience as someone who's played around with, say, the SkyStrife plugin system, the Promodium plugin system, wherever they're at, we are not anywhere close to. If you're building a plugin system is extremely hard to do cleanly, and we haven't put in the work to do that if we want to be very candid with everyone. So if you did want to do this, you'd have a high impact on the game. I believe that it's a very well-scoped mod that can be carried out quickly, but you will be in the trenches. Make no mistake. Like, you will be looking at a game that is raw. You'll have to really dig into the logic, but it's doable. That's all I'll say on that. So those are the pros and cons, and that's everything I wanted to cover. So we went over what network states is, what our favorite mod is. Of course, you're free to do anything, but the main mod that I want to talk about was this one. I also talked about some pros and cons of the mod. If you wanted to try out the game in the boring single-player version, unless you convince a buddy to come play with you, you can go to tinyurl.com/networkstates and get a feel for it before you decide whether or not you'd like to work with us. And that is everything. That's network states, everyone. Happy to answer any questions, if any. Yeah.